Welcome all to Craigberoch Live, and thanks for joining us. I'm Patrick, one of the co-hosts, along with Gib, who you'll meet in a second. I hope you can see all that. So this is the outline for today. So morning for some, afternoon for others. In a short while, I'll introduce you to Gib. Then we're going to have a short breakout, improv, a very lively session that promises to be. We'll introduce what we call the Avengers. We have a Mars space at the time, but that's a sort of a calm space, and we'll have some music then. So a sort of a pause. We'll then we'll get us the story of Craigberoch, how it was founded from the founder, Gib. We'll then have a breakout, and we'll end up with a reflection space and end up with a checkout, finishing at 7 o'clock Central European time, 6 o'clock UK time, and that's yeah. So in an hour or so, a couple of hours. All right. Well, I'm going to pass you over to Gib, who's the founder of Craigberoch.
Yeah, my name is Gib Bulloch. I guess one of the people responsible for having you here. It's very much a team effort and an experiment, very emergent, and we'll see where it goes. In fact, you know, if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would say absolutely not. We would not be doing deceleration online. I said, this is all about getting offline. This is all about unplugging and going to this beautiful Scottish island where I grew up and where I guess my heart never really left, although my mortgage and jobs and career went in different places. But I'm finding myself going back increasingly, and we'll talk a little bit more later on about what deceleration is all about. But we experimented and brought some business people together with nature, together with the creative forces and impulses of music and art and improv comedy and community. And we had an amazing event last year and plan to do many more, and will do many more in the future. And then this thing came along. I'm not going to be mentioning, you've had enough of, you know what I'm talking about. There was a big disruption a few months ago that has affected all our lives, a crisis. But I think it's the Chinese that say that crisis is an opportunity, danger and opportunity, two things. And the opportunity came for us to do something online and use the power of Zoom, which has amazed me in terms of what you can actually do with Zoom. And we'll just give you a sample in a second. I'll be introducing you, as per the agenda, to the cast. I don't talk about, spent my whole life in business talking about trainers, and it's a very dry term. I much prefer cast because that more sums up the diversity of the people who have sort of come on board with this quite crazy journey. I'll introduce you to more of them in a second, but I guess the first thing we wanted to do is really hear from, or get you to talk about why you're here. There's really only one rule that we had when we got together in Scotland, when we brought these people of different seniorities, different backgrounds together. You didn't talk about what you did for a living. You didn't talk about how big your job was, how many people you managed, what your title was. You came as who you were. And I think what we want to do, just to bring you into this, is break you out into little groups. Please don't use this as an opportunity to disappear. And I'm a bit nervous with the technology because it's been a bit ropey, but with a bit of luck, you will go into different breakouts and have the chance just to speak to a couple of other people with the core question, you know, why are you on this call? Maybe I can get our improvers ready. I dabbled about 1 or 2 years ago, I think. I'm based in Switzerland and heard about this improv thing going on. There's an improv troupe in Geneva, and met Vicky and John there. And I must admit, as someone who's been in business the whole time, that the elements of improv that around, it's not about trying to be funny or telling jokes. It's about collaboration. It's about listening. It's about getting out your comfort zone. It's about letting go. It's about being creative. It ticks every box, whether you're in business or whether you're in another kind of organization. It's just amazing and such a versatile tool. And so, you know, I'm so delighted that Vicky and John came on this journey in Craigberoch, and I'm going to hand over, I think, to Vicky to begin with, to take us away from our Zoom, get us out our heads and out of this kind of chaos, Vicky, and into a different kind of chaos, please.
Hello, everyone. Yay. I recommend that you put on gallery view rather than speaker view so you can see as many people as wonderful as possible, which is also wonderful.
And they are wonderful too.
They are wonderful. So I'm Vicky, and down there somewhere amongst your screen, you'll see John as well. We are, as Gib mentioned, members of an improv troupe here in Geneva, and we love introducing people to improv. And I think as it applies to deceleration, as I was mentioning in my little group, I think it really helps. It's a skill, it's a mindset and a skill set that helps you really be present and be connected to the people around you. And that's part of the experience that we want to bring to you today. So I'm going to challenge you to do something that perhaps you don't do very often in your video calls, which is I want to challenge you to stand up, get out of your chair. I'm already standing, look at me. So get up, and yeah, Patrick was saying that when we were breathing at the beginning, that it's great to reconnect to your body. So just stretch out of your body, you know, like it's a pretty cool thing. And John and I will be having a full session of improv to get us all connected and in touch with each other, and maybe smiling a little bit. Get rid of the bad juju of the Zoom bomber who I didn't even see. So what I would like you to do is I want you to start moving whatever way you want. So you were kind of stretching, you can do that. You can play around with depths of field, come really close, go really far away, and just play around with these squares and rectangles that we have around us. And just move. And you can hide, peek, whatever you want. And then let's all freeze. And we can breathe in the frozenness. And move again. And you can move in the same cool way that you've been moving, or you can find a new way to move. You can do whatever you want and freeze. So now what we're going to do is we are going to start and stop moving together. What your job is to look at everyone else's screens. And if you see anyone who has begun moving, then you have permission to move as well. And if you see anyone who has stopped moving, you should also stop moving. And in this way, we wait for the whole group to stop. Once the whole group has stopped, we can start moving again. I'm going to turn off my video because this isn't about following me. This is about all of you tuning into each other. So whenever anyone begins moving, you can all begin moving again. I'm loving getting to watch all the different ways that people are finding to move. This is very nice. Beautiful. Give yourselves a Zoom round of applause, which is like wiggly fingers. That was, I felt something when you guys were doing that. I'd love to see in the chat any feelings or observations that you guys experienced while connecting in this way.
People typing
Connection
away.
and calmness.
Connection, calmness, yeah.
Unity, lovely.
Unity.
Yeah, focusing on everyone else. That's Anna points out an interesting thing. Yeah, we got to be in harmony very quickly. Yeah, I love it.
To others, flow and ebb. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, silence on the screen, lots of noise outside. Yeah, so it's amazing. We're all tuning in from different parts of the world. We're all we were all united in this, and fun and unity carries throughout these 2 weeks for you. And yeah, Zunair is totally right. It was this global sort of movement of all of us moving towards our screen that no one else knew but us and the Zoom bomber. All right, over to you, John, for the next exercise.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vicky. Gib said something very important about improv at the outset. He said it's about collaboration, about listening, and that really is improv. It's about working together to build a scene. It's not my scene, it's not Vicky's scene, but together we each bring a little brick and we build something. So for this next game, this is going to be a game that's going to involve a little bit of participation from 4 people. I need 4 volunteers. It's a very easy game. Just raise your hand so I can call you out. Who's interested? Jessica, I see. Who else? Now I can only see one screen at a time. So Tony, Jessica, Tony. I can't see anybody else. Nobody else. Okay, Jonathan, excellent, and James. Okay, so Jessica, Tony, Jonathan, and James, can you leave your screens on? Could everybody else, just for a moment, turn your camera off, and Zoom should magically push those guys up to the front. And I will do the same for a second. So I see James, Jonathan, Tony, Gib and Scotty, if you could turn your cameras off just for a second and then back on. Okay, they're fairly bunched up together. Now, here's what we're going to do. James, can you see Jonathan, Tony, and Jessica? Okay, we can't. Oh, and Nick, you're going to have to unmute James, Jonathan, Tony, and Jessica. So while Nick's doing that, James, what I'd like you to do is rename yourself. Just add a number 1 in front of your name. Click on your name and just add the number 1 in front of your name. Jonathan, you're going to be number 2. Tony, you'll be number 3. And Jessica, you will be number 4. Excellent. So we have James 1, Tony is 3, Tony stay, and Jonathan. Okay. This game is called One Word Story. And together, the 4 of you are going to build a story. But the rule is you can each only say 1 word at a time. So if, as I'm going to recommend, the story begins once upon a time, James would say once, Jonathan upon, Tony a, Jessica time, and it would go around and around, always in this same order of 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to speak clearly so your other partners can hear because you're building the story together. When it's your turn, if you feel the person before you has come to the end of a natural sentence, you can either clap your hands or say full stop, and then you start another sentence. Is everybody clear? Okay, everybody's clear. Okay, so for everyone else who's watching, in the chat, can you just type an emotion? Give me any emotion. It can be a positive emotion, a negative, love, delight, surprise. I like surprise. Okay, I'm going to go with surprise. That's good. Now, can you please type a profession? Any profession you can think of, no matter how strange. Dentist, I saw of the surprised lumberjack. Take it away, and we're going to start with once upon a time. So we start with James, and away we go. 3, 2, 1, improv.
Once, no, Do I speak the once or do I start from there?
You start with once.
Once.
Upon.
Time.
There.
Was.
Man.
Who.
Loved.
To.
Kill.
Squirrels.
By.
His.
Axe.
Keep going, James. You can give the next one.
Right, okay. His.
Love.
Subsequently.
Resulted.
In.
Grotesque.
Alarmingly.
Fun.
But.
Enjoyable.
Slightly.
Illegal.
And.
Would.
Particularly.
Irritate.
The people.
Nearby.
Supposedly.
He.
Took.
Lumberjacking.
Or.
University.
In.
Canada.
However.
He.
Always.
Procrastinated.
Bring it to a conclusion. Last sentence, Tony.
Finally.
He.
Discovered.
Chainsaws.
Forever.
The end. Bravo. I just like to note that although several squirrels were murdered, there were no trees harmed in the making of this story. So very quick debrief from the four of you. How did that feel? How did that feel, just being able to tell the story one word at a time?
For me, I suppose it started off, you were too consciously thinking about it. You were kind of too worried about what you were going to say rather than just saying really what the first thing came into your head.
Exactly, because this often happens. Because did you find, was there any of the four of you, there was a moment where you thought, oh yeah, the story's going to go this way, but then somebody would say something and no, you had to get rid of that. So that's one of the things of improv that Vicky and I are going to be doing in more depth in our session. The other thing that I would point out just before passing back to Vicky for the next exercise, and the four of you, you did this very well. There were times when you got the funny word like grotesque or squirrels or chainsaw. But then there were other times where you just had to say the or and or to. Small words, not very funny. But the thing is, it's those small words that hold the thing together. And as a lesson, if we apply this in the real world, when people work on projects in their companies or organizations or wherever, as a team, sometimes you get the big part, the big business trip or whatever. Sometimes you get the part that's smaller, less seen, but without doing that, the big part never takes place. So that's what I love about that exercise. Any final comments from the four orators? Everybody else, let's give them a big round of applause here. Say again, Jonathan? It's good.
I just said it was fun.
Vicky, back to you. Great. Back to you,
Thank
Vicky.
you, guys. Thank you all for participating. We're actually going to close out the improv session here, but before we hand back to Gib and to Patrick, I would love it if those of you watching the stories or just also reflecting on the experience we had connecting at the start, what do you think we're going to be doing? What are the words and feelings you now associate with improv, and what we're going to be working towards together in the next 2 weeks? unpredictable and fun, fearless, more fun,
Gratitude,
beautiful, interconnecting,
fun,
listening,
exciting.
absolutely. Great. So
Love
keep
it.
those comments coming, and then we'll hand back to Gib and Patrick. Thank you all very much for your willingness to be silly with us briefly.
Big round of applause for Vicky and John. This is the virtual round of applause. Yeah, it's great. This sounds horrible, actually. So, thank you so much. Maybe I can just do some intros of the rest of the cast, actually. Is that what's on the agenda, Patrick? I think, Nick, have you, can you maybe share?
It is. I was just going to say, as a sort of a lead-in, Gib, that, I mean, one of the questions that often comes up, well, what's Craigberoch about? And we call ourselves a business decelerator, but it's not just about deceleration. We're all getting that with the pandemic. It's about what you do with the time you get if you slow down. And we've gathered together, I suppose, a number of characters, such as to be repetitive. And that's a great thing when life's predictable. But when we're going through crazy times, then being able to see the world from a different perspective becomes a real asset. And so I think partly we brought this group together to try to, people who just see the world in a different way and bring a different perspective. So I guess Gib's going to introduce, some of them are on the call, some of them will be seeing the course the next 2 weeks. So over to you, Gib.
It was a long time in the corporate world, and then in the last few years have been stepping into these other interesting areas and trying to see where business can have more purpose and more meaning by helping people get more creative and driving social innovation in business. I said to people, I was 20 years in Accenture, the management consultancy. For the first 5 years, I was working for the company, and the next 15, I was working from the company as an entrepreneur to try and sort of drive change within these large organizations. And there's a lot of that in terms of what we're trying to do with Craigberoch. I think Patrick will touch on that a little bit later on after we've done the intros. Here are some pictures. There you go, an all-female slide there. Some are on the chat and some are on the call and some aren't, and I'll turn to them in a second. Delphine, Emma, who is going to talk about the yoga. There's an optional extra yoga that wasn't in the program that you were able to get. I know that Alexa is not going to be able to be on, but she is. There's an amazing nature meditation, and that's something that's going to be a treat for those that are able to join us next week. And Scotty, I'll be talking to in a second, and Vicky, you've just seen. Next slide. I'll just do this and then we'll go off the screen share. John, you've seen, that's him in action. John, in his bio, he's modest, but he was the European Toastmaster Speaker of the Year many years running. So he is going to, as well as improv, be talking a bit about public speaking and how we can sort of get our messages across. Gina Kaori, I'll talk to. The clue is in the flute that she is holding. So we will, yes, have some musical interlude in a second. Jan, and then Mandar. I'm not sure if Mandar's in the call. So maybe if you go off screen share, and I'll just, rather than boring bios and looking at screens, I'd much rather have people up in this view, and this is unrehearsed kind of, let's go to some of these people and just ask them what I'm about. I'm going to pick on Delphine first of all. So Delphine, are you on? I don't know where you are on my, oh yes, I see you in the bottom corner of my screen. I met Delphine a few years ago, and the most interesting thing I've done with Delphine is be in the Red Sea doing free diving with dolphins. And Delphine is an expert in animal intelligence, but is also a neuroscientist as well. Delphine, why are you here and what are you going to be doing with us?
Hello, everyone. I'm here for you, Gib. I'm here for Craigberoch. I'm really, really inspired by this project, and I think I hope that in these 2 weeks you will be inspired as well. And yes, you said I'm a neuroscientist. I'm also an executive coach, and I'm accompanying leaders and teams and organizations to succeed in the of innovation, to find right ecosystems. And I'm also an animal lover. And from my research in primate intelligence and my coaching activities with dolphins, as you said, and with horses as well, I see how much us humans can benefit from observing and interacting with animals. I'm here for that, to invite you to get inspired by animals and to share with you some reflections I have about the powerful source of inspiration they are. And especially in the current challenging times where we need to reinvent ourselves, our societies, our interactions with our ecosystem, we can really take a huge advantage by getting inspired by animals, connect with our true nature, and innovate. So it will be my pleasure next Thursday, I think, to share that with you and to bring you in my Craigberoch spirit.
Thanks, Delphine. And it's exceptional for anyone that's worked with Delphine in the past. When I met, when I was on this boat with Delphine, I was also with Jan, who is another Frenchman, another French accent. Maybe I go to Jan just now, and you work together a lot with Delphine. So Jan, give us your take on what you're going to be offering.
Well, my pleasure is complexity, and I love the system, and I love when people try to understand their system, and just if they can find a way to press the button somewhere in the system to make change to other things. So it's very interesting to go deeper into those questions. So during this Craigberoch live, I would be very happy to have a small coaching session to help who wants to have a hand to have some burning questions, maybe not answer, but just to feel how it is to have this little difficult question to understand, but just to make you reflect. How can you change maybe a little things that make you a big or a huge change in your life? And I love, of course, the deceleration system, because when you decelerate, you don't do nothing, you just do something else. And this is full of wealthy stuff when it's decelerating. So welcome to the deceleration world. Thank you for that experience.
Thanks, yeah. That's an important point you make, that deceleration, some people don't quite get it. I guess you're here either because you're curious or you must have tuned in, but this is not about just stopping and doing nothing. This is really about driving change in ourselves, in the organizations we work in, and in the world around about us. And you can't, I don't think, do that if you're running at 100 miles an hour like we all were until relatively recently. I'm going to turn mind, body, very, very linked. So there's also some stuff that we offer you in the next couple of weeks around body intelligence, nutrition. Scotty, I see you there. You always, I always have to watch what I'm eating when if I meet Scotty, but tell us how nutrition fits into this deceleration agenda.
Yeah, so I'm here because I'm really passionate about nutrition. But what people tend to think about when we talk about nutrition is, what am I eating? And is she going to call me out for what I'm eating around her? But in fact, what I want to bring to this session is how nutrition can be used to help build resilience through the body. And what I'll do is I'll invite everyone to consider that stress is as much in the body as it is in the mind. And as that's the case, once we accept that that's the case, then preventing burnout, treating burnout, and building resilience should be approached as much through the body as it is in the mind. So through what I would call functional medicine, to to strengthen the body in parallel with strengthening the mind. That will be, I think, on Thursday, the 7th of July.
Thank you, Scotty. The agenda, by the way, is going to be sent through to you, and we'll share it later on. For those that are, this is the sample, or this is the movie trailer, if you will. We're trying to sort of want you to come to the main movie and get the full story. So we're just giving you the 2-minute sampler here of everything. I see Kaori on the line as well. We saw you with the flute, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to play just yet, but if you are willing to later on, then that's a treat. I'm going to get people to wait a bit. You're on mute just now, but Kaori, I met you. It was a number of years ago, and you were speaking at a conference, well, you were playing the flute at a conference in New York. Kaori, I'll tell you, is one of the preeminent Japanese flautists, and has been doing lots and lots of performance. But then you turned away from just performing to actually use your musical talents in Africa as well. Do you want to tell us a bit about Music Beyond and what's that about?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning from Montana. It's all Gib's fault.
Oh.
Well, yes, it is. So I met Gib at this all-woman conference in New York, and until then, I was a very conventional classical flutist who plays a lot of concerts in different places, record albums, and so on. So that has been my life, and then I was quite content with it. And then I was there at this conference to talk a little bit about the life as a musician, and then play a little bit of a flute. And but before I listened to Gib spoke, I didn't know him. He was just a strange guy who was at this all-woman conference. And then he said something like, never thought development sector is for a person like me who is a business consultant. And when I heard that, it was like, you get like bang with a hammer on your head. I don't know the expression. I thought, wow, all my life, my career had been all about me. You know, how many concerts I play, how many awards I get, how many blah, blah, blah. Everything is about me. And me, that the musician, supposed to be a good people who shares joy and whatever to the people. Yes, I have been doing that, but only to people who can afford that, and that was sort of a life-changing moment. And soon after, I established this small organization called Music Beyond, and now we work in a Democratic Republic of the Congo to use the power of music to sort of empower people through education, through women's empowerment program, things like that. So yeah, was that a good explanation?
It's amazing, and thank you, Kaori, and maybe Nick, you can put a link in the thing to musicbeyond.org, I think it is, because there's some videos in there, and it's so inspiring to see some of the work that you've done and how music can be used for such a different thing. And you also talked a bit about the space between the notes, which I found was amazing. You were the first person to talk to me about the concept. Tell us about the space between the notes that makes the music. It's not just about playing the notes, right?
Space between the notes probably is more important than note itself. I believe that. Musicians, yes, we make notes. That's our job, but this tiny moment between two phrases, that is more important. That is much more powerful than the note itself. It's the same with language in the conversation. Sometimes the pause is much more powerful. You can connect with more people through pauses than somebody talking 100 miles per minute. you know. So I am a big fan of pause, and of course people always say like, well, but you're supposed to be playing something, and I do play, but you know, later I will play a little bit, and then I want you to sort of just, you know, look for those like teeny tiny pause, that 0.3 seconds of pause, because I live for that.
And when do we, in business terms, I certainly know from my career, I was filling every minute. There was no space between the notes. I had to be busy. I had to be productive. I had to have meetings. And so this idea of intentional space. Sorry, that was my attempt to just show.
Sorry.
You thought
Sorry about that.
You thought Zoom had frozen again. Intentional space. We will hear from you later on as we get a chance to pause. I'm going to turn now to, is Gina on the line? Because I know, Gina, we're moving down to Mexico from Montana. Gina's a fascinating person, I'm going to tell you. Gina works and runs a social enterprise and is an Ashoka Fellow, and she works with blind photographers.
You saw me and I saw you and all your amazing tribe. And that's my invitation, is to invite all of us sometimes to just close our eyes in order to really see with our soul and to be present. And I just think part of what we were saying now, Kaori, how in the silence we can then listen to our inner voice. And I think that's what happened to me 13 years ago. I heard my inner voice about how can I give and amplify the voices of those people who a lot of the times are invisible. So as a photographer, a crazy one for sure, decided to teach photography to blind people, because I really believe they can show us how to see through our senses. We have our 5 senses, and a lot of the time we give too much weight to sight. And sight is beautiful, believe me, as a photographer, I love it. But I also appreciate so much the other senses. And this is invitation to get all of us to be more present, to do less and be more, and really invite all our senses to help us create, change mindsets, move into different directions. And I'm here to share all the stories and the learnings I've had from all these amazing people that surround me. Blind people have shown me that there's no impossibles. They always say the limit, you set it yourself. And when you believe in the impossible, the incredible comes true. So my invitation here is that together we go on that journey and we tap into all our senses and we dare to think differently. Believe me that we always laugh about it, but when I started with this, a lot of people were challenging me to try to prove me wrong, that it was impossible that blind people could take photos. And even though what would be the purpose if they couldn't see it? And I think that was another huge learning that blind people said to me, actually, not giving us opportunity to express ourselves is more cruel. And assuming that because we don't see it, we don't enjoy it, is not right. And I think that's an invitation of sometimes to create, to give others, not and let go. And I think that's a huge learning. And I hope to share it with you and co-create together in the session.
I think it's so inspiring. Well, yeah, a round of applause for Gina as well, and the work that that you're doing. And you even, I think one of your photographers, you've shared some pictures, I think in the past, or you will do in your session, but one is an ambassador for Canon photographs.
Yes, yeah, Aaron has become an ambassador for Canon, and he now goes all over with his camera. He says that his camera is his best friend and what enabled him to really be seen from what they do have rather than what they don't have. And I think that's the message for all of us, to be seen from what we do have rather than focusing in what we don't.
Absolutely. So your session is going to be sensory photography and storytelling, I guess, using more than just pictures. We're so obsessed with the selfie and the image, and we think that's it.
Yes.
And so much more, right? Is that the gist of it? I think I'm certainly noticing so much more around me when I've had the chance to get out in nature during this kind of quiet period when the planes are out the sky and the cars are out the streets and things like that. It's just amazing, absolutely amazing. Okay, thank you so much, Gina. Applause for you again. I think that I can't see Emma, but I'm pretty sure she's on. Emma, are you there? Emma is...
I'm here.
Yeah, okay, you're somewhere, not maybe just not on my screen. I'm going to go to screen 2, but yeah. Emma, you did our yoga every morning when we were together in Butte, and it was amazing. And I've kind of hijacked your online class. You've gone online as well at the moment, but you've kindly said you're willing to offer your online class that goes on over the next couple of weeks to those who want to start their day.
Yep. Yes, you're very welcome. So I was very lucky to become part of the team for when we had the first Decelerator in Butte. So I feel still living on the energy that we got from that. So it's been lovely. And yes, I had had a business in Singapore teaching yoga, and then came back to the UK and was teaching clients here, but went online as soon as we could. And actually it's been a bit of an eye-opener, because at first everyone thinks it's going to be the worst way to, well, it's not going to be as good, but it's actually turned out to be a blessing in some ways. So for yoga, it's, yes, we're just starting to get, my one-on-one clients are starting to come back to my home, but I have I do call it good morning yoga, and just thought that as we were going into lockdown, that I wanted to keep a routine for myself. So I started just to share my 20-minute yoga in the morning at 7:30 a.m. So we did that for long, I don't know, 8-10 weeks. I can't. So now it's just now been incorporated into my normal classes. But I'd love it if you'd like to try it out. 7:30 a.m. Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and it's quick 20 minutes of yoga. So we start with a little bit of pranayama, so breath work, just to ground you, start the day. Just looking inwards a little, and then just getting into our physical body and moving a bit. So it's mainly based around the sun salutes. It's a little mini circuit to warm up all the joints and limbs, and you don't need any yoga experience. Yeah, so you're very welcome. I also do desk yoga twice a week, so a.m. for 20 minutes. So you don't need any yoga gear. You can be at your desk, and it's just a good stretch and a twist, and just get the blood flowing so you can focus on your work. So love you to join me.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you so much. And we'll be sending out the times to all those that have registered, and giving people the codes to join. But I must admit, I've been using the opportunity to do yoga myself. I'm not very good, but nobody needs to.
I can't see you. It's cameras off, so.
Cameras off, exactly. So it doesn't.
Be in your pajamas. I don't mind.
Doesn't really matter.
And Vicky joins every day as well.
Absolutely, we're a healthy cast. We're a very healthy cast. So just, I asked if there was any questions for any of the people I've spoken to so far who are live. There are others that I'll introduce that aren't on at the moment, because they're in different meetings and different things. But Alexander is running a session himself around masterpieces at the moment as we speak. An extreme artist. Alex was working in business. I think he always wanted to be an artist, and he was told when he was young, as many of us get told, you'll never make money, that's not going to be a good career. So he went off into business and worked as a marketeer. And then when he reached, I won't say what age, but let's say it began with around about 4, he just decided to go back to his roots and into art, and then use art and the power of creation to paint up mountains, paint in the snow, paint in the wind. And he's all about helping people create your masterpiece, not teaching you to paint, teaching you to create. And again, it's in this theme of letting go. I think we've got a couple of other slides as well, Nick, if we move on. We have nicknames for people. The guru is very tongue-in-cheek, so everyone gets these nicknames: maestros, gurus, jesters, and things. As you can see, we're hopefully not taking ourselves too seriously with this. And Peter has worked for many, many years, specializing a lot on money and our relationship with money. This is not going to be a financial advisory session, believe me. It's about using our relationship with money to diagnose some of the unconscious biases and parts of our identity that we have maybe decided to suppress a little bit. I know that sounds a little bit woo-woo, but I can tell you it's a fascinating process he takes us through, and it's about trying to free yourself of things like a chasing of money or other kind of projections that you may have, to allow yourself to live a free life and follow your own personal purpose. And the feedback we get from Peter's sessions are always amazing. So I would really encourage you to join him. Next slide. We just go on. the Maestro, David Pearl. There you go. Another pose. David's, it's difficult to sum up in a short sentence, but I met David about 15 years ago, and we were going on what was called a leader's quest between Johannesburg to Maputo in the back of a minibus with some people, and we were stopping off in different places, and David and I became friends, and then we really reconnected a few years ago, and David he was trained in opera with Placido Domingo, and so he sings sometimes. He worked as a scriptwriter with Stanley Kubrick, and now he's using his musical talents. He's very musical in a business context. So if you were a new McKinsey partner, you probably get to meet David, who will talk to you about leadership and some of these metaphors around music that Kaori was talking about before, the space between the notes and some of the harmonies, if you will, that we're looking to get in business. So David, he's written a number of books around story and around how storytelling can be used as a powerful force for leaders. So that is David. You can look up his NGO Street Wisdom as well, which is fantastic. His latest book is called Wonderful, which is all about the things that you can see when you slow down and you walk about your normal habitat. You might actually see things that you wouldn't normally see. It again, it plays a little to what Gina was saying about opening up the different senses. Keep going, Nick. Maybe to next slide. I'm going to pass back to Patrick here, but that's the cast of characters that you're going to hear from over the next couple of weeks. I am so privileged to have all of these people on this journey. It's just amazing how they have come together and are offering their time. So you're in for a treat if you join us. And Patrick, do you want to sort of walk through the format for what we're going to go through as we spread out these sessions over the next 2 weeks?
Sure, Gib. Yes, so you've heard of the cast of characters. I suppose we're still in the relatively early stages at Craigberoch of working out how best to translate the insights, inspiration, and so on from these fascinating characters. So what we've got now coming up starting on Monday is a series of masterclasses, we call them. Not so much in the traditional, I'm so clever and I'll tell you what I know, but much more of an engaging in different ways, with more improv starting on Monday, the sensory photography. The timing starts the same time as this one. Hopefully we'll start on time with next week. And so we'll have each week, we sort of start off with some different sessions and a time for reflection between. We'll leave you with a question to go away and mull on over the day, a check-in the next day at 5 o'clock Central European time, and then go into the sessions. And then at the end of the week, we have a sort of slightly longer session to integrate. There's drawn meditation, and so just a bit of reflection space to integrate all this. And the idea is we're drawing on left brain and right brain, using all the parts of our body too, and then we try and bring all that together, because that's the best way we are as humans. We use all parts of us too often. We focus on the top part and a bit to the left, and so it's a bit more bringing all that in for ourselves and the benefit of our organizations and all of us. And then so that's the outline, and then we finish as we get towards the end of the second week. We'll come to what we call open space, which is a way of developing an agenda, which is really led by the participants, not by us. So it's just what's coming up. Do they want a bit more of money work, or do they want some other subject which feels relevant to all? So that will be a facilitated space where it gives a chance to see what's emerging over the 2 weeks, and then a closing gathering on the 10th of July. Anything I've missed out, Gib?
No, I think we can go straight into having that pause and a little bit of Kaori's beautiful music as we have our own mass space, intentional space within this program. So Kaori, take it away.
Thank you.
Amazing, Kaori. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
I was
Sorry, I think
listening
it
to the
got a
point.
little bit loud outside, huh? Sorry about that.
It was perfect. It was perfect. I think people can show their appreciation in the chat. I was listening to these 0.3 millisecond pauses.
Yeah.
But I also like the notes as well.
What was that?
I also like the notes as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm conscious of people's time, and I know some people had to drop. We're recording the whole thing, but Patrick, I think the next thing is you have me in the hot seat a little bit here for a quick kind of chat about helping people understand more about where this comes from. So
yes, Gib. Yeah, I suppose one thing that's one of our themes is about story. That you know how life is. We as human beings, we relate to things so easily through stories. So it'd be nice if you could just share a bit of your story about how you ended up buying a small bit of land on a Scottish island in the middle of nowhere. But maybe it's not the middle of nowhere for you. So if you can just tell a bit about your story, that would be great.
yeah, so don't worry, folks. We're going to be on here. It's going to be 10 hours of my life story. Stay tuned. Get yourself a cup of tea.
And you've got 5 minutes.
I will keep it really brief. If you haven't worked out by now, I'm Scottish. That's the accent, and so maybe on next calls we'll have subtitles for those that can't understand the thing. I grew up on this island of Bute, and it's almost a bit of a return journey for me. You know, like most people was told, we have to, you know, you go to the big city and you go and try and make money and have a career and all the things that we're told would make us successful. And I found myself in the big city and in the late 90s, working in a big company. Many of you from big companies, many of you from government organizations. And I was ticking all these boxes that I thought were going to be, they were the things that I'd wanted, but there was something kind of missing. And I suppose the big change in my career, and as I reflect on it now, I haven't thought about this until recently, but as I reflect on it now, it was my first exposure to deceleration. I went on a sabbatical with the company I was in. I went on a sabbatical to volunteer with a NGO called VSO, and I was in the Balkans, Northern Macedonia, just after the Kosovo crisis, trying to impart my business skills to small businesses and running training courses, etc. I think I probably learned a whole lot more than I ever gave to anyone, but that was the pivot in my career when I discovered that actually, you know, there was this drug called purpose and meaning that had been elusive, that had been missing in my career, and I'd found it at that moment. So having intended to go back to the business and buy a new sports car or go back into the sort of normal treadmill and rev up the hamster wheel, I instead tried to lead this guerrilla movement, I suppose, within Accenture, and led that for many, many years until, you know, 15 years later, I had something of a burnout. I'd been loving my job, enjoying what I was doing, feeling that we were making a difference, but I'd also been ignoring the body, ignoring how hard I had been working, and found myself, you know, spending 5 days, 5 nights in hospital back in Scotland, as it happened to be. I thought I was going back home to visit friends, and I ended up staying in this hospital, and that was the next deceleration, if you will, somewhat forced upon me. I couldn't be running at 100 miles an hour. I realized just how hard we are all working, and my sense is, though, and it always has been, that we see people that burn out or people, you know, the level of disengagement or anxiety or the level of unhappiness that there is, certainly in the corporate world that I come from. We see that as a failure of individuals to adapt to the system. You're not strong enough, you're not resilient enough, you're not tough enough, and companies have tended to sort of, you know, do little kind of piecemeal challenges, you know, yes, free yoga classes, maybe pinball machines in the cafeteria, pay more money, an extra day's holiday, and it misses the point around how we actually rethink and reimagine companies, what they do, who they serve, and how they do it in the world. And I think the only way that we're going to do that, I don't see the change coming top down. I see it more coming bottom up, by a change in mindset, a change of consciousness, if you will, within the business world. And fast forward to where I'm at now, I took some time off, I reflected, I didn't go back onto the hamster wheel, and then a derelict farm came available back on the native island of Bute, where my mum still lives. And I bought this piece of land, not really knowing what I was doing, but I thought, if I can create a space where people can slow down, where people can come away and connect with nature and connect with themselves and be stimulated by music. I had a lot of, my father was an art teacher, and he also played the piano and the organ in the church. So I have music and art in my background. But these things we often keep separate. But what if you fuse them together? And what if you got business people together with people from other businesses and people from other sectors, and mix them with people from the community who think differently and act differently? Maybe we'll have a sort of a fertile ground for creating innovation in business. So that's kind of the journey from where I was to where I am now, and why deceleration is part of it. It's not all about mental health is something that's obviously important to me, but it's much more around creating the space for people to be creative, innovative, and perhaps drive change inside their organizations. And that's what we need just now.
So it's about individuals, and it's also about the bigger picture. And it's not one or the other, right?
I think it starts, I talk a lot about the power that individuals have to change the business world. We need to change the business world if we're going to change the world. But the realization of the last couple of years is, if we want to do that, then probably it starts by the harder job, much harder job, which is looking more inwards and looking at how we change ourselves and discover ourselves, our full range. We're all so much more, I think, than what we think we are or what we're told we are. We get put into boxes. We're told what we should be doing, or what we're meant to be doing, or what other people think will make us successful. And yet, when we start to open that up, I just think there's so much more richness in people. And then back to the collective, then that's the individual, the collective, the aggregate. It's just, you see this phenomenal change.
And how's it going? I mean, how are you?
Is it going? Well, I don't know. People can tell me in the chat, but I have to say that I love the quote. I don't know which Chinese philosopher it was, but the notion that you cross the river by feeling the stones with your feet.
It was Mao Zedong, actually.
Mao Zedong. There you are. Thank you. Patrick is he's a lawyer come philosopher on our team. And this notion that you really only know one step ahead. The idea 2 years ago when I bought this bit of land with a broken down building on it, I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was the right step at that time. I was just feeling with 1 foot ahead. And then people come on board on the journey, and then some money comes in from a couple of different sources. We're still looking for a lot more if there's any very wealthy people on here that like this. But I could never have imagined now that we would be online doing this. We're seeing huge possibilities. And then the crisis comes along. I thought it was this, it was going to really damage what we were doing. And instead what it is, I think, is opening up people to new ways of working. It's going to change dramatically the future of work. Will we all be going in on 1 hour commutes with face masks on from our shoebox expensive homes in central London or central cities to a big tower block where everybody used to work? We've seen that we can work very effectively. In fact, I think there's studies that are showing we're working more effectively, more innovatively when we're like this. So it's kind of, well, while we were doing this deceleration long before the crisis hit, we actually see that it's quite symbiotic. And we see that we're sort of got the wind in our back now to maybe have people think about, you might want to work in a different way and come to a different place to work and be connected to people who maybe think differently, act differently from you. And yeah, I think it's a very exciting time.
Do you want to say one more thing? I remember partly what drew me was the, I guess your passion for the community where you grew up, the Butte. So do you want to say something about the Butte? Because it feels like even though the online part has taken off, the island itself, the physical place, feels so important to you.
You know what? It is. I'll answer that very briefly, but then I'm gonna prime. I see Gary in the corner there, and he's on mute. And Gary, I'm going to come to you in about 30 seconds because I think you could explain this better than I can. I was passionate about this island community. I grew up there. My parents were born there, my grandparents, and we offered a number of places. We didn't want to do this, to the community. We wanted to do it with the community, and we brought together. We offered 5 free places on our first pilot event to people who came forward, and we got a great eclectic mix of people and joined them together with quite senior business people and quite senior people from different walks of life. And it seems to have had a lasting effect on the community in terms of what you've been doing and the way you're thinking. I think you said improv was at the farmers' ball at Christmas or something like that. Gary, why don't you sort of, what's it meant to you personally? Thanks for joining us, and just give us sorry to put you on the spot. This is improv, right?
Well, I would say when I first started, I had no idea what it's all going to be about. I'm sure lots of people on the call at the moment have no idea what it's about. But I found it very exhilarating. The improv I found very exhilarating. Meeting everybody was really fascinating. But also the benefit to me is that other people on Butte I didn't know. So I suddenly found myself with 4 people from Butte and made some long-lasting friendships, which have really gone on, and we speak every day since, but also speak to people from the previous Craigberoch. One of the things we did was we all got together on Christmas morning, and we all went swimming in the sea on Christmas morning. 15 of us, plus all the families, and we had Scottish whiskey and stuff, but it was a wonderful experience. In fact, a memorable experience, one of the best in my life, really. And then since then, as you say, we did improv at the Farmers' Ball at Mount Stewart, which is a big Gothic mansion. But also now we're starting our own improv group, and we were about to start it until we had the lockdown. But we're still talking about doing improv. And I would say that I never expected it to change my mind as much as it did. In fact, I'm starting to play the piano since Craigberoch, which is interesting. And the music, the space between the notes really interests me. So I would say to people, what you have to do is sort of let yourself go. And they talk about it so fondly. So I would say it's really good to participate. I really would encourage people to do it.
Thanks so much, Gary, for doing that. And sorry to put round of applause for Gary. The context of the Christmas Day swim, don't worry, if you ever come to the Scottish Island, and I hope many of you will, we don't throw you in the sea in December or November, but we have another one of our cast, Callum is a special forces soldier who took us on walks into nature, but also allowed us to connect through cold water with ourselves. And people loved it so much that, as you can see, it happened there. So back to you, Patrick. I think you've probably heard enough from me, but is there any?
Well, I was going to ask one more question, which is something that comes up for me often. My own journey has been about, I've got this lawyer thing going on. I wasn't a bad lawyer, I thought, but I was passionate about trees and the outdoors and nature conservation and rainforest. And I thought, well, how do you bring these two together? And that struggle to integrate, and it strikes me, I think one of the reasons why you attract a very diverse group of people, from crazy flautists and yoga teachers, and David Pearl is who trained with Pavarotti, and a real bunch of different people. And there's the music and the art and the money work and so on. And how does the integration of all that into, for me, when you can do it, you make a much more whole human being. But have you got anything you've learned about how you integrate different parts of us, which our society, our work seems to encourage us to separate out and say, only bring this bit to work, or so keep that bit for weekends?
The short answer I would say to that is it's very much a work in progress, Patrick. But over the last couple of years in my personal life, I've been trying to go out of my comfort zone. I'd been kind of in my comfort zone for 15, 20 years. I was enjoying my job. I was doing my thing, and I thought I was making some impact in the world, and it was all fine. And then it's trying this improv and being vulnerable, joining a gospel choir when I'd never, and I'd never sung outside of the shower in my life, and discovered I liked that. So I'm starting to get singing lessons. And then the singing lessons is starting, my natural voice, as you can probably hear, is more down on this bass scale, but I'm being pushed into parts and making noises, not all of them tuneful, but getting into bits of the repertoire that I didn't think I could go. And then you start to think, well, if you can do that with your voice, it's similar to opening up the identity. So the integration is something we're very focused on when it comes to this course, and the colleagues and the experts and coaches that we've got on here are very much trying to get this red thread. What has improv, or what does art, and what have these other things got in common apart from being more right brain than left brain? Well, we want to integrate them into this idea of letting go, creating, and allowing whatever needs to emerge through you to emerge. So it's all about, I think it's letting go would be my summary. Completely letting go. Steer less, float more, as the saying goes.
Excellent, thank you. Well, so everyone, what we're going to do now is go into breakouts again, and then we'll come back together and reflect, and then close down. And I guess the question I'd like you to take in, I guess we'll be into threes again, probably. You may find the odd four, maybe the odd two. The question would be, so what's coming up for you? What's inspiration, something? What's grabbed you? What's moving through you at this time you'd happy to share in your small group? And we'll have, I guess, up to about 10 minutes. So there's a chance to really reflect in threes on what's coming up for you. Welcome back, everyone. We've just got a few minutes now, I guess, to share with the wider group. There's no obligation, of course, no obligation in this space, but if you've got something that came up and you want to share, you can share it in the chat, or just share it with the group. You can unmute yourself, I think, and just share.
I was just going to say that I was lucky enough to have a chat with people who are on the Craigberoch course just now, and it's just amazing how we've developed these friendships since the course. And the people on Butte, the 5 of us on Butte, are talking so often, and we're going out next weekend walking together, talking about things. But also it's interesting how many people have benefited from this lockdown. On Butte, we've benefited because we've had to talk to one another about how do we solve problems like shopping or doing things. And I would say the sense of community here has been really improved because of this problem. And I'm not sure what happens to everybody else, but I would just like to say the sense of community within the Craigberoch group, I would say, it's going to last for a long time in my life. And I hope anybody else who joins it finds that as well.
Great, nice to hear, Gary. Anyone else? Scotty.
We just had a lovely discussion, and I'm just reminded by how much it helps to have a like-minded tribe to help take forward a sense of authenticity, which seems like such an individual task, and yet I'm just reminded how much I appreciate having others support me in that journey, to help keep me grounded and accountable, and give me a sense, the ability to reflect. Yeah.
Thanks, Scotty. Anyone else?
Lola.
Hello, everyone. So I think from our chat, it was really interesting. I found really interesting the comment that sometimes, we come across as different people in the work and professional environment, and when we are, sort of personally, and why does it need to be that way? So it was very nice the way it was challenged in our group, and just probably being a bit more truth to who we are and what we want, and just not having to just play these different roles, which is probably ending up just requiring extra unnecessary energy from each of us.
It's one of our rules, and we do an event. People come and we say the one thing you can't talk about is what you do for a living, and that confuses some people, because well, how do I talk about myself if I can't say, here's my business card, this is who I am, is this head of something at something? So it's yeah.
But no, I think from what we were speaking about in our breakout was the fact that, I'm originally from Butte, but I've been stuck in Qatar, and it's been pretty intense lockdown over here. And I think the beauty of it is the fact that it is an eclectic group. I said to the girls earlier, and to see everybody else's perspective of what it's all about, and listen to everybody else's story, especially with the deceleration as well. I go back about 6 times a year purely to decompress, and that's the beauty of the place. And to hear everybody else's story about what they're getting out of it, and what they envisage deceleration is all about. It's good to share, and I think that's the beauty is how eclectic the group is. And I think it was a stroke of genius to get the 5 guys from the island involved as well, because again, it's all about listening to other people's stories and understanding and learning how everybody else decelerates. What works for them might not work for me, but it could work for somebody else. So it's been good. This evening session's been good.
Great.
Vicky, over to you. The floor is yours to let.
Thank you. First of all, I'm just I'm enjoying really the comments coming in. Lola wrote something about that her father tells her to go slower, to go further, which reminds me of what your mother tells you, Gib, the festina lente, hurry slowly, which I think is a beautiful summary of this concept of deceleration. I just had a tiny little exercise that I think is a nice reflection for us to collectively close this session, because I know we all had a lot coming up. For me in my session, my mini session, I have a lot too, so I think it could be nice if we can bring those out into the group, and also hear everyone's voice a little bit, because now that we're under 30, now we have a little bit of we have the ability to do this. So I looked at the number, and we're just under the number of letters in the alphabet. So we're going to close out the session. Each person is going to share one word or phrase or sentence of an idea that they've had, or something they're looking forward to, or something, just a reflection. And it has to start with the next letter of the alphabet. So the first person will begin their sentence or phrase or word with A, then B, then C, and so on. But I'm not going to impose an order, so we're going to do it popcorn style. One person will begin, and then whoever speaks next will go with the next letter. And what I recommend is, if you have a really good thing to say with D, but then someone gets to D before you, then say it with E, and I know you're going to find a way to say it starting with a different word, and it's going to be okay. So it's more about, we want to hear your reflection, and the constraint is just to get you to be a bit more creative. So I'm going to put John on the spot and have him start, and then you can just raise your hand if you're ready to go next, and I'll call on you. And if no one's raising their hand, I'll just choose someone. So John.
Always be up for the unexpected these next 2 weeks, and you will benefit enormously.
Beautiful. We can give everyone a little Zoom round of applause. Who would like to go next? James Johnson, I saw you first. Unmute.
Be kind.
Beautiful. Next. Anna. We can't hear you.
Connection.
Beautiful. Next.
Deceleration.
Hey, Nick coming in with the big D word. Julian, you moved your hand to your face, so I think you're up next with your E.
Excitement.
Wonderful. Who's up for F? Rachel, don't forget to unmute. We still can't hear you.
Frivolous.
Wonderful. G. Lola.
Go with the flow.
Perfect. This is testing my alphabet knowledge. H. Happy Cecile, go for it.
Well, happiness.
Great. Yes, Patrick with an I.
I loved it.
Great. J.
Just go with the flow.
Thank you, Gary. K. DJ Forza.
Keep smiling.
Beautiful. L. Gib.
Let go.
Wonderful. M. John Scaife, don't forget to unmute.
Mayhem.
Mayhem, I love it. N. Andrea, all eyes on you.
Uh-oh. The pressure. No pressure.
There you go. Beautiful. Oh. Scotty.
Opportunities for growth.
Beautiful. That reminds me of P. Perfect. Q. Jessica.
Quit feeling bad.
I love it. R. Bring the animal spirit, Delphine. S.
I could jump in because I am not on video,
Great,
but I've been trying to use these icons. For S, I would say some call it deceleration, others might call it rehumanizing.
Wow. I think that's our next tagline, guys.
Nice.
Love it. Who can top Francesca with a T? I'm going to go to Thomas because his name begins with a T and we haven't heard from him yet.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go. And now you can say whatever you want.
Trust, chance, and luck, and all those forces you can't rationalize.
I love it. You. Craig.
Oh, uniformly decelerating.
Love it. V. We haven't heard from you, Emma. You have 4 letters left.
Which one do you think I'm waiting for?
I don't know.
Why is all my...
Okay, great. V. I'll go do another one. We don't have 26 people. Vicky is excited about the next 2 weeks. It's an easy one. W. So people can repeat now, even if you have spoken, because everyone except Emma, who's reserved Y, has spoken, I think. Oh, who are you pointing to, Nick?
I think Happy Cecile wanted to say something.
Yes, go for it.
There you go.
Yeah, I would say welcome everybody.
Yes,
welcome
I love it.
Here in the nice place.
And I love that everyone feels that this is their space to welcome other people into. That's great. Gib.
X-rated Zoom bombers will not be allowed on future sessions.
Wonderful. Over to Emma for her Y.
So yoga is not just about the poses, it's how you live your life.
Wonderful. And we're gonna end the way we began, back to John, who's gonna have a beautiful thing to end with a Z or Z.
Zoom is going to give us a chance to connect in ways we can't possibly imagine right now.